Guys, let's move on to our third and final topic of the show for tonight, and it's all about the ladies. We have, you know, February was Black History Month, and we had a topic. Seth, we had a conversation talking about that near the end of the month, and I wanted to do something for this month as well. And it for people who don't know, maybe didn't know, we had International Women's Day like a week or two ago, but March is considered Women's History Month. And I wanted to sit down and talk, Seth, about our favorite women in gaming. And really, we have a list. We're going to go through them here. But to celebrate Women's History Month, I wanted to take some time and kind of talk about who are some of our favorite women in gaming. Who are some of our favorite ladies that we look up to and we appreciate and we have a good time, and when we see them on channel, we're like, ooh, okay, I'm get hyped. Or inspired by in some way in the video game industry as a whole. And so, Seth, I will start with you. We're gonna do the baton pass. Haha, Persona 5 reference for anybody who you got it. We're gonna do the baton pass. So I guess by that thinking, Seth, as we hand the baton, we will get more and more powerful, and our attacks will do more damage.
That's exactly it. We're leading up to our all-out attack.
Start us off, Seth.
Let me start you off. Rutu, can you please stop hacking my computer and sharing my screen to chat? Because my first awesome lady in gaming is, I put on here, I'm going to read exactly what's on the Google Doc. I put FemShep, right? The one true shepherd, right? Cameron adds in a note, the game character or Jennifer Hale? Seth creates a second note, all caps, all bold, both.
This is true. He did do this.
Because part of what makes... So FemShep was my first, I guess, interaction with Jennifer Hale, being like, oh man, I love her performance, right? Like, I'm sure she's done bajillion voices before then, but that was the first one there. I was like, man, she really brought that character to life.
Yeah, to give you guys an idea here, and a lot of information that I'm going to reference, I'm going to be pulling from online sources like Wikipedia or their personal pages that they have themselves. Yeah. Jennifer Hale, she's done work in video game franchises such as Baldur's Gate, Mass Effect, Metal Gear Solid, BioShock Infinite, Metroid Prime, Overwatch, and Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. In 2013, she was recognized by Guinness World Records as the most prolific video game voice actress. So some pretty good stats there for Jennifer Hale.
Very impressive merits also. Most prolific voice actress. So, yeah, I mean, Jennifer Hale is one of the most seasoned veterans, I'd say, in the entire games VO, and honestly just VO space in general. She is... her voice is legendary. If you know FemShep, you know Jennifer Hale's voice. That's her voice. And it's... When I think about women that have really made an impact, right? I think that Jennifer Hale was a pioneer of really getting out there and showing that in gaming in particular, because a lot of those games you just listed off are some of the greatest BioWare games ever made, right? Dragon Age, Mass Effect, Knights of the Old Republic.
Yes.
She was there, and those BioWare games were carving the path for strongest narrative RPGs of their time, right? And so when you think about it, Jennifer Hale is bringing the voice of these female characters in these games. In some cases, there may be supporting characters. In the case of Mass Effect, it is the literal main character of the series. And what's so fascinating is that there are countless articles, there's countless research about do people choose men or women to play as in games? Why are the box covers all dudes? Da-da-da-da-da, right?
Yep.
Not here to have that conversation, right? I do think women are criminally underrepresented. I think we've come a long way so far, but we still have a long way to go, right? So, but to put things into perspective, Jennifer Hale cast the voice, or was the voice casted as the voice of the woman who was the first reversible cover for the game where you could like pull the cover out and flip it around to be FemShep, right? Mass Effect 3's cover did that, right? And you know that was a decision that had to be made because so many people loved her representation of FemShep, right? And so much so that in the upcoming Legendary Edition, they are going back to the first Mass Effect game and basically changing the default female model to match that of the Mass Effect 3 and 2 default female models, which were basically, I think, what most people identify FemShep as, right?
Yeah.
So, but just outside of Mass Effect, just extremely talented voice actress, a pedigree that is astronomically, diverse in her abilities, in the types of roles she plays. She's still rocking out bangers. But the thing I think that I love most about Jennifer Hale is that she is a person who really loves gaming. Gaming is her heart. It is the heart of her career. And you see this if you follow her on social media. I remember when they first revealed the Mass Effect remaster. She did not really know that this was happening, right? Because it's very easy in those industries to not know this kind of stuff is happening because they're using audio that's already been recorded, right? They're just remastering it for the new releases. So she gets on Twitter and is like crying because of how moved she is by the community outreach, right? Just people losing their minds and they're like, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. I can't wait to relive this life. And then, finding out that like, oh, FemShep is now a character, right? Just like Shepard was a character. There's a default Shepard. There's now a male Shep. There's now a default female Shep. And that's really, really cool. And it's all because of her fantastic performance. So Jennifer Hale, a.k.a. FemShep, a.k.a. probably one of your other favorite female voices.
Yeah. Now, look, Jennifer Hale's great. As a female voice actress in gaming, I want to give it up to Jennifer Hale. She's doing great work out there. But I'm going to be honest. This is Cameron's opinion. She's not doing anything as much as my first pick, who's going to be Laura Bailey. Let me tell you about Laura Bailey. For people who don't know about Laura Bailey, you have probably played a game with Laura Bailey voicing a character in there here. I'm gonna read the top half of her Wikipedia page so to put this in perspective for everyone out there. Laura Bailey, this is not games. This is anime. She made her debut in anime as Kid Trunks in the Funimation dub of Dragon Ball Z. So if you watched Dragon Ball Z as a kid on Toonami and you liked Kid Trunks' voice, guess what? It's Laura Bailey. So boom, she's already got a win in my book for that. She also voiced Toru Honda in Fruit Baskets, Lust in Full Metal Alchemist, and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, the title character of the Funimation dub of Shin-Chan and Maka Albarn in Soul Eater. That's anime. Let's actually now get to the video games. In video games, she has voiced Rain in the Blood Rain franchise, Jaina Proudmoore in World of Warcraft, Rise Kujikawa in Persona 4, Chun-Li in Street Fighter, Sarah Farah in Final Fantasy XIII, Blaze the Cat in Sonic the Hedgehog. That's actually pretty awesome. The title role in Catherine, Serana in Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Dawnguard DLC, Lucina in Fire Emblem Awakening, Abigail Fetchwalker in Infamous Second Son and First Light, Fiona in Tales from the Borderlands, Spartan Olympia Vale in Halo 5 Guardians, Nadine Ross in Uncharted 4 Thief's End and The Lost Legacy, Kate Diaz in Gears of War, and Abby in The Last of Us Part 2. She has also voiced Catwoman in Batman the Telltale series, Supergirl in Injustice 2, Mary Jane Watson in Spider-Man and Black Widow in a number of Marvel projects, particularly the TV show Avengers Assemble and the Avengers video game released in 2020. She's also on the web series Critical Role. Laura Bailey she's a lady about town. She's making moves. She's doing all sorts of craziness. Yeah,
Real hustle.
Like she's busting her ass, and like she is the female equivalent of Troy Baker. I think it's the best way that I can describe it. Troy Baker's in every video game you've played, and Laura Bailey's the lady in every video game you played. Laura Bailey is an incredible talent. I remember growing up and watching that Toonami and like watching Dragon Ball Z, and you got to the Buu Saga and it's Kid Trunks and Goten and they're doing fusion, and I'm like, man, this is crazy. And then like as I slowly got into anime and learned that a lot of, for people who don't know, in anime, a lot of like younger characters, even like especially boys, they'll use women as the voices for young men. I say young men, young boys, because their voices aren't, as deep and defined as they are when they're an adult. And I remember like learning about that and then realizing that Laura Bailey is the voice of Kid Trunks, and I was like, what? And like I think there's a video online of her talking about like she does the voice like spot on. I'm like, holy crap! And just seeing her experience and following through her entire career and seeing all the incredible characters she done. She won an award at the Game Awards this year for her character Abby in The Last of Us Part 2, which was pretty incredible. I remember, I didn't tell you this, Seth, but like when I first thought of this topic for the show, the first example I had was Laura Bailey in as Fetch in Infamous Second Son, and then the First Light DLC, because I remember that First Light DLC and it was like the standalone experience with Fetch, and honestly her neon powers were like the coolest power in the game. So I was like, I love Fetch, she's awesome, I want to do the neon stuff. Like I was like, I love Delson Rowe, but just give me the neon power and let me do that all the time. And they did that when they gave me Fetch for the game. And it should be like, it's an understatement of how much work that Laura Bailey has put in to make her mark in this industry. And some of your, some of those are smaller characters, but some of those are big, Abby in The Last of Us Part 2, Kate Diaz in the Gears of War franchise, Chun-Li in Street Fighter. She's had some big names to her title. Jaina Proudmoore in World of Warcraft. And I think that Laura Bailey is just an incredible voice talent, incredible actress, and she's a nerd and a geek. She plays D&D, she loves video games, she loves anime. 2 thumbs way up for Cam.
Yeah. I mean, she is a voice on Critical Role, one of the most popular nerd shows, period. Like, it pulls in numbers as big, if not bigger, than most primetime TV shows. So like,
she's a star. Like giving Laura Bailey her credit, she is out here doing a lot of work. And if you don't know the name Laura Bailey, I think you're doing something wrong. She's doing incredible work for video games. And I hope that she continues to do so for a very, very long time. We're really, really inspired by what she does.
It's very easy to fill this list with a voice actress. Rutu in chat calls out Tara Strong. Thumbs up. Raven. Yes. Yep. But way more than just Raven. That's just the one that like most identifies with me. But yeah, I didn't want to fill it too much with voice actresses. There's a ton of great talent out there. The other game that kind of popped into my mind is like, man, the female voice really made that game. Well, or actually there were 2 games. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the voice of female Cassandra, or Cassandra is the female character, right? That character made that game for me. The male voice just didn't have that same level of like, I don't know, commitment and like just nuance to it. And then also Cyberpunk. I know everyone loves to just poop on Cyberpunk because that's what media has taught us to do, but like the female voice in that game really, like, I will say this, a little controversial, objectively the best way to experience that game story, because the male voice is not as good, period. The male voice is an actor, not a voice actor, an actor. And you can kind of tell that in the delivery of a lot of lines. There's just not the same level of emotion that you get from the female. So, but not here to talk about those. I want to talk about badass women rocking it out, because there are some amazing female leaders in gaming. I think especially being like a big fan of Xbox, it's really easy for me to start picking out big names. And of course, I cannot talk about great women in tech, great women in gaming, without talking about Bonnie Ross, the president of 343 Industries, the woman who literally, if we are looking at the Mad Max Fury Road scene and we've got the car that is representative of the Halo franchise, she is the character with the flame guitar that is just riding into the sunset with the crew behind her. She is on stage almost, I think she's been on stage at pretty much every E3 that Halo's ever been talked about, right? She is a seasoned executive. She is a leader upon leaders.
She is the corporate vice president at Xbox Game Studios and is also established and is the head of 343 Industries, who if you don't know, they create that game everybody likes called Halo. Just toss it out there.
Yes. And if you really look at her role, she is, you said corporate vice president of Xbox, correct?
Xbox Game Studios, yes.
Yeah. So to put this in perspective, that was the same role that I think Phil Spencer had before he was head of Xbox, right? Like he was in charge of the Game Studios division. And now, so you're basically looking at what very well could be, one day when Phil decides to step away or move to something else, Bonnie could be the head of Xbox, right? And that is an awesome thing to think about, right? In a field that just struggles day after day after day with putting women in meaningful positions, to see Xbox having someone like Bonnie of her talent, her caliber, her experience in such a high level role, that is really impactful. And she's been there for a long time. She's been running. I think she was like the founder of 343. So like as soon as they,
that's what she established. She helped start 343.
As soon as they started building their own first party IP library, right? Like they started to bring things in house back when the Xbox One first came out, right? We're not talking about the console experience at the time, but when they were bringing the first party IPs, when they did the initiative, when they did the Coalition 343, those kinds of things, right? They started to bring those IPs in house. She was there leading the biggest ship. I would still say Halo is probably their biggest ship that is currently sailing, right? Halo Infinite, huge game that I know the jury's still out on. We still got to see what happens with it, but nonetheless, for better or worse, that game is going to do really, really well. And she is the person who established that studio to help bring that to life. So bravo to you, Bonnie Ross. Keep rocking it out. Another kind of factor to think about with Bonnie is she has been a huge advocate for fighting for women in tech, trying to help women get more meaningful, higher level roles. You see it across the board. I am a designer. I'm a product designer. I work in tech a lot. It is very, very common to see a lot of women in design roles, but then as soon as it becomes a design leadership role, it's just magically men. Like it's just all men all the time, right? And you'll see these titles, senior, VP, all these high-level titles, all men. And then you get to the women who are carrying just as much influence, if not more influence, more decision-making, more critical wins on their resume, and they're not carrying those same roles. So Bonnie has been fighting to lessen that gap, because don't think the gap is gone. The gap is still there. She has been working to lessen that gap, to build bridges over that gap, and to allow women to get into those more meaningful tech positions. And she's been doing that from her entire career. She's known for it, and she's just really awesome. She is a great example of a strong female leader, and I can't wait to see what she does in the future.
Good call. Good discussion. My second pick, apparently I need to hide my sheet from Marutu as well, because he's cheating and looking at my stuff here. My next pick is also, I think, a powerful lady in gaming, is Jade Raymond. I feel, and especially with the news this week of her starting her own independent studio after the whole Fallout stuff from Stadia, and kind of Sony's helping to foot the bill to get that upstart going. I wanted to put Jade Raymond on here. I remember Jade Raymond when she, not from like her notable video game stuff, but she was on, again, dating both of us, Seth. She was on G4, and she was on Electric Playground with Victor Lucas. And I remember watching that back in the day when I came home from school. Jade Raymond is just awesome. I'm reading a little bit of her career and notable stuff I want to talk about here. She's a Canadian video game creator. She helped create the Assassin's Creed and the Watch Dog franchises. And she's also credited for helping to build the Ubisoft Toronto and EA Motive Studios. Of course, we all know how those end up shaking out, but I think that when you hear Jade's name attached to a studio, you have nothing but optimism and like, ooh, I can't wait. I'm super excited to see what she's doing here. Let me read she worked as a producer for The Sims Online. Her first job was a programmer for Sony, where she eventually helped in the creation of Sony Online's first research and development group, which is pretty important. She ended up joining a little after the Sims Online help as a producer. She joined the Electric Playground as a part-time correspondent, working with Victor Lucas and Tommy Tallarico, with all those guys, notable names. In 2004, she started working for Ubisoft Montreal, where she led the creation of the first Assassin's Creed game. She went on to become the executive producer on Assassin's Creed 2 and was executive producer of new IP at Ubisoft Montreal, which included Watch Dogs and the Mighty Quest for Epic Loot. She's bounced around. She joined EA and was formed Motive Studios. She was also in charge of Visceral Games at one point. She was working with Amy Hennig on Star Wars games, and that whole thing happened. And then in 2018 or around that time, she went over to the head studio at Stadia, and now she's doing her own thing in her own studio. I digress here, and it showed you. There's Jade right there. Jade is awesome. I think the big thing is I think Jade is one of the perennial models to talk about when you talk about female video game developers, and the notable ones that what you talked about, Seth, about the leaders in those fields. Mm-hmm. We have Bonnie Ross, and she's gotten to the top of the pile as well, and like Jade Raymond and what she's doing and continuing to make games and awesome games. I know Assassin's Creed is one of the biggest video game franchises right now, and she helped create that. Watch Dogs has been an incredible and different and unique IP. The first one didn't hit well with me, but Watch Dogs 2, wonderful. Watch Dogs Legion, have a lot of fun with it. And I think that just her effort, I think what inspires me the most about Jade is the fact that all this stuff that's happened, she went to EA Motive to lead that studio with Amy Hennig, and then that fell out from EA, and then she went to Stadia, was helping to lead those studios. Then we all know what happened with Stadia, but she still continues to stay in this industry and be relevant and push to be a video game creator and a female video game creator in the space. She's now, the studio isn't owned by Sony from what I'm seeing, but she's partnering with Sony to have them help her build her new independent studio to create a new game exclusive for Sony's PlayStation 5. And so I'm really, really excited. I love Jade. One of my favorite video game developers that I've ever since the Electric Playground and seeing her on there and hearing her talk about games and stuff. And I'm always interested and intrigued to see what moves she's making in the industry. So I'm really glad she's still here all this time now, and that we still continue to talk about her in such high regard. So Jade is
congrats to her in Haven. Yeah, congrats to her in starting Haven. That's the new.
It's called Haven.
Okay.
Okay.
It's called Haven. Yep. All right, next up. So I've talked about the woman who helped start the game company that owns the biggest space-themed video game IP. I'm now going to talk about the woman who runs the company that owns the biggest space-themed IP, period. That is, of course, a little bit of a stretch away from gaming, but I'm speaking, of course, of Kathleen Kennedy, the president of Lucasfilm. This woman is the face of Star Wars. She is, especially in the Disney era, she is the woman that has been leading Lucasfilm post George Lucas. Mm-hmm. She basically has helped Star Wars grow from where it was, right, in its late Lucas days into a business, and I mentioned this before, it's the second biggest IP in the world, right? Behind Pokemon. When I say biggest, I mean as far as dollars generated, which is honestly what all these folks care about. So it generates
Zing.
billions of dollars, right? And it would be very easy for a big giant corporation like Disney to want to put a, big time male figurehead in charge of this. But no, Kathleen Kennedy is the head. She has been the head. She still is and will be for the foreseeable future the head of Lucasfilm. They have been exponentially successful, like so much more successful than ever before. I know there's a lot of conversation around prequels and things, or sorry, the sequels and whatnot. Does not matter. Those movies did extremely well. They have refocused in Mandalorian, literally put Disney Plus on the map. And Disney Plus is right now single-handedly saving Disney from a dive bombing stock price as theme parks and movies have dried up, right? So she is leading the IP that is literally helping Disney stay relevant, and not only relevant, but like growing in this age of streaming, right? She is, I mean, mirror a lot of my things about Bonnie Ross. She's been a huge proponent of reducing the gap, the gender gap. That's both in pay, in position, all of it, right? She is a leader of, she is willing to admit when she's made a mistake or when her team has made a mistake. And that's what you look for in really good leaders, right? And the fact that Disney has allowed her to stay in that position is just goes to show that she is A, fantastic at what she does, and B, one of the best women. I'm not necessarily in gaming because she's not really dealing a whole lot with gaming directly, but I think you and I can both agree that Star Wars is a pivotal part of gaming's history, right? All the way back to Super Star Wars, Star Wars arcade games,
Ooh.
up to today, where, for better or worse, right? Like Jedi Fallen Order,
Yeah.
great Star Wars game, pretty much was a proof of concept for EA to stop focusing on games as a service. Probably the game that ends up saving BioWare, because now they've been allowed to start making single player games again, right? So Star Wars means something to gamers, right? And Kathleen is the person that is steering the ship. Fantastic female in a very, very important position for the entire entertainment and gaming industry. Kathleen Kennedy, rock it out.
My next pick, I actually mentioned her name when I was talking about Jade Raymond. That pick is Amy Hennig. Amy Hennig. She's video game director, scriptwriter. I'm reading from her Wikipedia page. Formerly for the video game company Naughty Dog, she began her work in the industry on the Nintendo Entertainment System with her design debut on the Super NES game Michael Jordan Chaos in the Windy City. She later went to work for Crystal Dynamics, working primarily on the Legacy of Kain series, which she considers her greatest achievement. Which is funny considering Uncharted is a thing that exists. With Naughty Dog, she worked primarily on Jack and Daxter, and the Uncharted series. She has been called one of the most influential women in the video game industry by Edge magazine. She believes that creative direction of a script holds more importance than the graphics of the game, which is that's a good topic to debate. But giving you guys just a list of her works there, some of the games she's worked on as Electrocop, The Bard's Tale 4, Desert Strike, Return to the Gulf, Michael Jordan's Chaos in the Windy City, 3D Baseball, Blood Omen, Legacy of Kain is where she was started being design manager and kind of the big roles. Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver, she was director, producer, and writer. Soul Reaver 2, Legacy of Kain Defiance, Jack 3, and basically all of the Uncharted games except for Uncharted 4. And her latest credit is Battlefield Hardline back in 2015 for EA. I know she was working with Jade Raymond on trying to get that Star Wars game out of there. I think, isn't she still working on that Star Wars game? Or did she get shuffled off to somewhere else? No, she went somewhere else, I think, Seth.
Yeah, she's gone somewhere else. I think all the Star Wars stuff changed recently. So,
but I just appreciate Amy Hennig for all of the... If you know me, you've listened to the show or you've heard the show. You know, I'm like a story is a big point in gaming for me. I've grown in my gaming history to appreciate the stories that are told in gaming, and Amy Hennig is one of the top storytellers in gaming, in my opinion. You want proof? Uncharted series 1 through 3. Please go play them. Then tell me I'm right. She's just done an incredible job with the story she tells and the scripts that she builds with these stories. It's a shame she didn't get to finish and complete everything with Uncharted 4, because I'm sure that story would have been incredible there. But I think Amy is kind of one of those incredible silent heroes in the industry, because people, script writer isn't as glamorous as level designer or environment artist or head of studio or something like that. But I think that, especially in story driven games like the Legacy of Kain series, like the Uncharted series, your game has to have a story, and a damn good one, to keep people's attention and to keep the gameplay flowing well. And I think that Amy Hennig has done an incredible job doing that. And Uncharted is a favorite of mine. It's not one of my favorite game series there, but every time there's an Uncharted game, I really enjoy jumping into it there. So definitely wanted to give credit to her and what she's done in the industry during her time here. She's done a lot of incredible work and told a lot of incredible stories for gamers.
Yeah.
So,
and I did a little bit of digging while you were there. The last thing I could find out was from November of 2019. Okay. I will remind you all that this was 2 months before the virus came in. So she moved to Skydance, which works on films like Annihilation and Gemini Man. They are also heading up the new Terminator series for Netflix.
Oh,
if you've
okay.
heard about that recently. And basically, she is going to be working on emerging streaming platforms, interactive media to reach gamers and non-gamers alike. So it sounds like she's doing some of the how can we bridge the gap between streaming content and interactivity? Heck, she might even be working on that Terminator anime series. You really don't know, but that seems to be where she is at, which sounds like a pretty good gig, if you ask me. I think it's good to be in streaming right now. You're probably doing really well in that role. So
you're up
for her.
We each got 2 left.
Turn. All right, so I'm gonna get a little weird on my fourth one here, but I've mentioned this before. I'll mention it again. I do think that this is the coolest thing to happen to influencers in a long ass time. And the one influencer that got me into this whole subculture genre of you know where this is going if you listen, of VTubers is Korone Inugami. If you haven't seen Korone, you have heard her, most likely. She is Japanese VTuber. VTuber stand for virtual tuber. Basically, not like a fictional character that is, of course, voiced by a real person, but their identity is, separate. They are for all intents and purposes, a fictional character. I'm so glad you picked her Doom playthrough because, hands down, without question, Korone's playthrough of Doom 2016 is the best playthrough of that game ever made. It is beautiful. She is a Japanese streamer, or Japanese primary voice. Sorry, I'm getting confused here. She speaks primarily in Japanese, so it is hard to watch her stuff live if you don't know how to speak Japanese. However, there are a ton of fan content channels that edit her videos and add subtitles, as you see on the Doom video here. They will most often trim up those as well to make it kind of a highlights reel so you get the best moments. Mm-hmm. But she is an absolute joy to watch. She is, of course, being a cute anime character, she's got a very cute anime voice, but it's not an annoying voice. I know a lot of people roll their eyes when they think about cute anime characters. The Doom playthrough in particular, I love when she starts going she'll be die, die, die. She'll get into that gamer mode, right? And so you'll be 1 minute, she'll be die. And, Japanese is a very elegant language. And sometimes translating what they're saying is hard to English, but it will be let me introduce you to the BFG. Like it's, and that's the way that you translate what she's saying. But she's like, I will introduce you to the BFG. Behold the BFG. And like it's just such a joy to watch her. And like I said, last September was when I discovered VTubers. My fiance put me, kind of put me up to it. Like, hey, you gotta check this out. This is really awesome. She showed me Cordone, fell in love, watched the whole Doom stream, absolutely loved it. Shortly after that, they announced that there were English versions of these VTubers coming out, and I watch those probably 2 or 3 days a week. I will tune in and watch they call it Hololive is the parent company that runs it all. But Hololive English-speaking ones. But I put Cordone on here because I've said this before, I'll say it again. I do think that VTubers are a huge market that is going to continue to grow. I've always... Cameron, I think if we were talking earlier about our hundreds of episodes we've shot, right? If you go back in time, I think there's an episode where I talked about the future of streaming is everyone becomes WWE wrestlers, right? Everyone becomes a character, everyone becomes a personality, and then it's all about how the personalities interact, right?
Yeah.
And we're seeing that already. You're seeing that with Dr. Disrespect, you're seeing it with the way Ninja carried himself. It is all about the character you play. And what's the next logical step beyond playing a character yourself? Playing a character you made up. So VTubers really are an interesting, like, I just love them. They're like this enigma. I can't wait to see like where VTubers go. I can't wait to see the first one that breaks out of the anime art style. I know the anime art style is very divisive for a lot of people, but I think that if people can learn to love animated characters like they have with Toy Story, like they have with Frozen, those kinds of animated films, I think people could learn to love animated influencers like VTubers. And so I put Cordone on here because I think beyond just being a great female VTuber, I think Cordone she is a very smart woman. Of course you don't know who she is in real life. Like her, part of the whole idol thing is you protect the person's identity, right? But she knows her audience so well. You think that streamers on Twitch make a lot of money? She's making money all the time. She knows exactly what her viewers want, right? The kinds of games that they want her to play. She plays tons of retro games. She plays a lot of Doom's a great example. She loves Assassin's Creed. She'll play big AAA games. She'll play R-Type. She'll play all kinds of different games. Off the wall Vietnamese horror, first person horror games. She's got such a great breadth to her style. But at the end of the day, the thing that you want in an influencer is you want to be entertained when you tune in. And I have yet to tune into a Cordone stream that I am not entertained throughout. Every single one. And if you really want some laughs, Cameron, and you're like, I can't handle the Japanese speaking, just tune into one of her like 4 English only streams because they're magical. They're magical. So obviously she's bad at English, right? She's not great. And her rule is I'm going to play the game until I slip up and say a word in Japanese. And I want you to know, Cameron, it's like watching a truck fall apart as it burns to the ground as it drives down the hill. She is trying so hard not to use Japanese words while playing Super Mario Brothers, right? And she finally slips up, and true to her word, as soon as she slips up, she's like, yep, I just said that. Cut stream. Stream is off. She's done. Yes, I will paste it here in chat for you. There we go. I'll put it in chat here for you. And she is on YouTube. She is not on Twitch. A lot of VTubers, in fact, are not on Twitch. So, Cameron, if you want to throw a link in there, you can as well.
I'll put the link to the YouTube clip.
I would say
that'll take you straight to
look
her
up
page.
Cordone Doom playthrough. Find that English translated version of it, and you'll get a pretty good idea of like what it's like to watch her play a game. Absolutely joy. Wow, an absolute joy to watch. And I can't recommend her enough. Rock it out. I don't know who you actually are, Cordone, because your identity is protected, as it should be. I want it to be protected because it allows you to live a normal-ass life when you're not streaming. But you do great when you are on camera. So,
Next up here, my penultimate pick, on at least on our list here is
Penultimate pick.
the best lady in the business, Andrea Renee.
Oh yeah.
I cannot talk about women in gaming without talking about Andrea Renee. Let me tell you, I'm reading from her own website, getting some information about Andrea Renee for you guys. So of course she's a co-founder for What's Good Games, with Brittany Braumbacher and Kristen Steimer, helping over there. She's like a big video game host. She's available for like hosting a lot of uh, video game conferences, events, online stuff. You've seen her probably host conferences. She's a great, awesome host. If you are old like me, you will remember when Andrea was the voice and or face that you heard when you walked into your local GameStop. She was one of the first kind of big names on GameStop TV in U.S. retail locations. She's also hosted weekly esports coverage on Yahoo Esports. All sorts of just she's covered countless video game and tech conventions, including GDC, PAX, E3, CES, Comic-Con. She's been on Vice, Spike TV, IGN, ABC, DC All Access, Logitech. I mean, it's just it. I love Andrea Renee, and I love her for a lot of different reasons. You know, she, for me, feels like a nice breath of fresh air in gaming, and not just because she's the lady, but really because I appreciate the fact that Andrea tries to look beyond topics. And, you know, one of the things that I think Andrea has learned this over time in her career is that Andrea you'll hear I say controversial topic, where you hear a topic and everybody's like, oh, they shouldn't have done that. Da, 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 da. But then Andrea will come in and say, well, hold on a second here. Let's look at the business aspect of it. Let's look at the other aspects that are coming into this conversation instead of purely from a gamer or consumer standpoint. And really, not saying that I always agree with her, but she really gives a lot of insight that a lot of us gamers and consumers truly don't think about when it comes to gaming. It's one of the reasons that I try and do my best when we're having topics and having discussions, that I kind of try and take a look behind, you know, aside from the general conversation that everybody has in regards to those topics, and start talking more, you know, what about the business side of it? Why would a company like Microsoft do Xbox Game Pass? Why would a company like Sony make games $70 a month? You know, what's the thing? What you know, we don't get all the information, but what's the thinking behind that? And that's one thing I really appreciate Andrea for doing, because I don't see that enough in the industry, I think. And, you know, sometimes that gets her, you know, sometimes people get mad at her. You know, that's just how it is. Because she's like, you know, think about this. And people are like, no, we don't want to think about it. Or, no, that doesn't make any sense. But, you know, but she's like, well, it may not make sense to you, but in the bigger picture, it makes sense. And you have to take it into consideration. And I think Andrea, what she does for the gaming industry, and I think she is one of the biggest female faces in video gaming right now. If you're just thinking about gaming, not just the industry, but gaming as a whole. And I think what she's doing with the ladies over at What's Good Games is just awesome. I listen to their podcast every chance that I get, and I just have a wonderful time listening and trying to learn. I feel like I learn some stuff when I hear Andrea Renee talk about certain topics in the industry. And that's not something I say a lot about with a lot of other people that I listen to. And, you know, I really appreciate that. I think Andrea is a gem, and again, as are all these ladies, and even the ones we don't name on here because we just don't have time to, is that she's a wonderful face for the industry. And if you're not listening to What's Good Games, you're not listening to what she's talking about in industry, because she has a lot of insight, because not only is she like one of these journalist, creator, people that review and criticize about games, but she also has learned about the business side of games and been with the executives and whatnot when they're trying to build conferences or why they're showing this game and not this one and some of the decisions behind that. And she's a great voice to listen to in gaming, and I hope that her voice continues and that more voices like hers come in the industry.
Yeah. Yeah. She offers a lot of really awesome insight. I will also say, I'm glad you are feeling better, Andrea. She has been in the hospital for the past little bit.
She has, yeah.
And good updates all around. She's, I think, last tweet she sent out was yesterday. She's finally home to continue healing. So the past couple of episodes she has not been on. Obviously, she's been dealing with some medical stuff, but feel better soon. We love you, Andrea. Keep rocking it out. Good work.
Seth, your last one.
All right, I'm last up. So last up is somebody that is relatively new to my purview of badass women in tech, but I have yet to see her on anything that whether she's at a talk or on a video or whatever, and not be impressed with just her absolute like energy. She has that energy, like it similar to like how Phil Spencer has that infectious energy, right? Like I'm not saying that she like has that same energy, but she has that level of like energy when she talks. You get invested in what she says. And this is Sarah Bond, the chief vice president of the Xbox ecosystem at Xbox, and she has really been hustling recently. Most recently, you saw her on the Bethesda, hour and 15-minute live stream they did last week. You can see her here from an episode of Spawn on Me with Khalif Adams. She is. So you ask yourself, well, what is an Xbox ecosystem? What does that mean to be this chief vice president of that? She is basically the person responsible for building out Xbox to be more than just a box you buy, right? She is one of the brain children behind Game Pass as a concept, right? That is her baby. And we just spent
reading some of one of her pages from online here from Dice,
yep,
of all places. Sarah leads Microsoft's gaming business development team. She and her team are responsible for cultivating and managing Microsoft's gaming partnerships, crafting and executing deals and negotiations, and shaping strategy and M&A. Sarah's organization is global with presences in Redmond, Tokyo, Seoul, Shanghai, and London. She probably had a very large hand in getting Bethesda on board with the Xbox team.
Bethesda, Game Pass as a concept, all these games that are coming to Game Pass. She is the person who is dealing those deals, cutting those deals, working with developers and publishers to get content for Xbox gamers, right? And yeah, I think that probably Bethesda is going to be her ultimate achievement, right? Yeah, the crown jewel there, thank you, of her career will be, bringing one of the largest independent, well, not independent, but like largest like video game storytelling mega corporations and merging them into Xbox. Like,
yeah,
can you imagine that? So it's, when you look at her, she is just all over the place. She's on interviews. And like I said, one of the big reasons that I really love her is you have a lot of really smart people in the world, right? I've talked about really smart women. Kathleen Kennedy, Bonnie Ross, all very smart, very adept and professional leaders. But Sarah Bond is one of those people that really, like I said, she is just so much fun to listen to. She is a person that you can tell she loves Xbox, and she's not just looking at it as a business. She is really there to help build the best gaming platform, period, right? And she is doing that because we all kind of acknowledge that like it takes more than first parties to make a console work, right? You've got to constantly have new stuff coming in. You've got to constantly be working on new deals, new promotional campaigns. Everybody does this, right? Sony probably has someone similar that cuts the Call of Duty deals, right? And the PlayStation Plus games, those kinds of things. Everybody has this. And Sarah Bond is just very vocal, very upfront. And I'm really proud of the Xbox team for putting her on stage up there with Phil in a lot of cases, up there with Aaron Greenberg, who's that marketing, that marketing head. Because yeah, biz dev, not super exciting stuff. And for those that don't know what biz dev is, that's business development, meaning that you find the people to make the money, right? Like it's a, let's call it a big boy salesperson, right? You're cutting the big deals. And so that's generally not like super entertaining stuff, but she has created a role for herself where she is really about how can Xbox partner with key strategy, key folks in the industry to make Xbox brand something that's meaningful and impactful for people all around the globe. So bravo to you, Sarah Bond. Keep it up. I can't wait to see what you do in the future.
Okay. My final one here.
That's it.
My final one on the list. For people that remember, when we started back in this year, in really my discussions and points in with Rocket Punch, and was one of the things is we were going to have, there were from time to time we were going to have some uncomfortable conversations on the show, and I think that is the path we need to move forward, because I think it's stuff that we need to talk about and discuss and have conversations on. One of my final pick here is Jayanne Lopez. You may not know who that is, but Jayanne Lopez, you should know who she is. Jayanne Lopez is the CEO and founder of Black Girl Gamers. It's an online space and platform, reading directly from her webpage here. It's an online space and platform that heightens the visibility of black women in gaming and advocates for diversity and inclusion. And in addition to being a global space with over 6,000 women, Black Girl Gamers has partnered with V&A Museum, Belong Gaming Arenas, Facebook, and Twitch to curate events that highlight the need for inclusion in the industry, including the industry-shaking event Gamer Girls Night In. I forgot how I ended up following her. I think it was like through some other people, but I started following Black Girl Gamers and her on Twitter, and it's I'm going to tell a story. Everybody get comfortable sitting for a second here. I remember when I was a young kid and was starting to get into gaming, and really thinking about it all. I remember having thoughts and conversations. I felt like there weren't as many black kids around me. There were some, but there weren't a lot that had the passion for games that I did. And then, especially as I got older, really, and I remember even thinking about it back then. I mean, I felt like there were barely any black gamers out there, male. I cannot tell you a single black female when I was a kid growing up that just liked games. I couldn't tell you. And it's very interesting now, as we're older now, and we have things like the internet and Twitter and all these things that connect us, how large that group is, and not just for black female gamers, but also gamers, minority gamers, and things of that nature in and of itself. And I'll definitely say, I'm sad that it's taken so long to see this visibility, but I'm really happy to see visibility like that out there, so that kids don't grow up like I did, where thinking that if they're a minority or LGBT or disabled or something of that nature, that they feel like they're the only person in their hemisphere that likes games, and they have people that they can connect with in that way. Not saying that they can't connect with everybody, but that there's a connection. There's a slight difference when if I talk to some of my friends about games, and then I find somebody who is maybe another black person or like that, and I talk about games with them, and I'm like, you like games too? Oh my god! Like, and then that feeling, that small feeling that makes you feel like you're not the only one, is there. And I think that J.Ann Lopez and what she's doing with Black Girl Gamers is really that outlet to let people out there know, especially, minorities, but more importantly, because of the name, black females know that if you like games, you like your anime, you like your weird, kooky, nerdy shit, there are other people that like that too, and you don't have to feel alone in that. And I really appreciate and respect what she's doing with the industry to help move it forward and help be a more diverse and inclusive industry. And because we only, when we have more minds, we have different ways of thinking, when we are looking at different solutions to problems, that can only make us better as a whole, instead of doing the same old thing that we've always done. And J.Ann Lopez is trying to buck that trend and shake up the industry in that way. And I appreciate her for what she's doing with that there. Um, so that is why she's on my list.
Bravo, buddy. Well spoken.
Give a round of applause for all the ladies.
I love your soapboxes. I love when you tell it like it is, and you're like, you are 100% right. And it's amazing to have these moments where we can kind of like stop and take a moment to like acknowledge the wins, right? Like to talk about amazing women in spaces like gaming. We've talked about everyone from entertainment. Heck, J.Ann Lopez looks like she's moving even outside of that to just in general, like overall Black culture and Black acceptance, right? And reducing that race, the culture of systemic racism that we have in place right now. And the thing that I really want to stress to everyone, it gets tweeted around at the end of every single National Blank Month, and it is, people always say, this is a year-round thing. This isn't a monthly thing. Just because February ended doesn't mean that we should no longer care about Black people. Just because March ends doesn't mean we should no longer care about women. The fact is that these months are here to celebrate and to highlight the wins, but it is up to us, it is up to you, the listener, to be the change that we need to see in our nation. This is for Black people, this is for women, especially right now for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders that are dealing with discrimination across the country from a horrible group of people. And it's surprising to find out it's probably not the same, or it's probably not surprising to see it's some of the probably same groups of people that have been giving women and Black individuals trouble for all these years, right? And I've said this before, I'll say it again. I'm a white cis male, so like, what do you know? You're blah, 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 blah. I will tell you this, I acknowledge the privileged position that I am in. And when Cameron gets on his soapbox, it gets me fired up, because I know that like love is a two-way street, success is a two-way street, moving forward is a two-way street, and that things are not going to get better until everyone is willing to make them better. And that is why it is so important to consistently celebrate the wins of women, Black individuals, Asian Americans, no matter what it is, who they are, what their minority is. If they are a minority, we need to make sure that they are celebrated and offered the exact same opportunities that non-minorities have, aka white people, right? Or men. And it is up to you to do that. And I will say that if you are in a leadership role, it is doubly on you, because you are the person that can make the decision. You are the person who is filtering out the resumes. You are the person who is making the decision on pay, right? On salary. And are you letting things like industry standard, past experience be shields that you think are protecting you from systemic racism or systemic persecution against women or other minorities? No, that is not acceptable. Like, you have to understand that these gaps exist. They are real. Women don't make as much as men. Minorities don't make as much as white people. We got to fix it. We've got to fix it. It's too late. We should have fixed it years ago, and we haven't. In fact, we've let it get worse over the past, I would say the past 4 years, it's gotten worse. And we're starting to work. We're starting to get there. But it is up to you. So let me challenge you. If you know people in your life, women, minorities, whatever it is, reach out to them and start to let them know that they are doing a fucking amazing job at what they're doing. If they mean something to you, don't just tweet it when it's trending. Tweet it all the time, anytime. Make it your policy. I'm going to give you a little insight, Cameron. I think I've shared this with you before, but I worked previously at a large tech company retailer, right?
Yeah.
And a big component of that job was providing feedback. And I made it my policy that I would always make sure to give 5 pieces of positive feedback to every 1 piece of critical feedback I give. And make that your policy. Make it your policy, because if you make it your policy to start not only celebrating, but then following that up with action, like really helping people, then you will find that there are opportunities all around you. If you work with someone who's a woman and she did something awesome on a project you were working on together, make sure she gets the shout out in the meeting. Make sure she gets the recognition. When salary compensation discussions come up, make sure that that's brought up and talked about, because part of the issue, Cameron, and I think you'll understand this, is that the system is rigged, right? The system is rigged against people. And there are situations, I have been in situations where women are told that they're being disruptive. They're causing a ruckus. You should be more nice. Be nicer.
Smile.
While at the
smile more.
While at the same time, equivalent level or above level male managers are being praised and given raises because they really know how to push their team. They really know how to be, they really know how to get, put pedal to the metal and grind and get things done. And you can't do that. That is because that's what, you know how that male manager does that is by pushing their team and being a little bit, I don't want to say pushy because that comes across as negative, but like,
accountable. Like accountable.
Accountable. And if you're going to say that when a woman does that, that she's being disruptive and messing up our culture. I hate when people start slinging the word culture around like it's some kind of, oh, well, you're not really a great culture fit. That people love to say that. You're not a great culture fit. What does that mean? Like when you're in a hiring, like next time, especially if you're in hiring and someone is like, well, I just don't think that person's a great culture fit. Why? Because they're black? And we're all white? Because that's bullshit. Right? I don't think she was a great culture fit. Why? Because she's a woman? Like, call it out. And I think I'm ranting now. I'm sorry, Cameron, you got me fired up.
I know I did. I was like, go, Seth, go.
You got to call that shit out. You can't just be like, oh, that was wrong. I shouldn't do that. I don't do that. They shouldn't either. No, you got to call them out. What do you mean they're not a good culture fit? What specific behavior did you identify that made them not a good culture fit? You will be surprised when you start asking for specifics, how quickly you discover your racist ass friends or your sexist ass friends, right? No, zero tolerance for that kind of shit. And if you've got family members that say it, I had close family members that said some stuff recently, and I was straight up said, I was like, I'm ending this conversation because what you just said is really racist, and I'm not going to have it. So we can either change the conversation or I can leave. And that's how it was. Was it uncomfortable? Yes. But I called this family member out on it. And it is so easy for everyone to just roll their eyes and be like, oh, well, grandpa's so racist. Grandma's so... No. Put your foot down. It is not acceptable. I don't care what experiences they had in the 1960s and the 1970s. Guess what? Things sucked back then worse than they did now. So it is not fair for you to let those experiences impact how you treat people who were not even alive then, right? Like,
yeah.
So it's sorry, Cameron. I'm ranting.
You're okay.
Now,
You're okay.
but
Take a breath. Let me wrap up here.
wrap us up.
Well, no, but guys, that's it. I wanted to take the time, and I remember, Seth, I told you at the beginning of the show here, I didn't want, we're over. We're super over. But I also
That was
didn't
important
want,
stuff.
I didn't want our discussion about our favorite ladies in gaming to just be an afterthought. I wanted us to talk about these ladies. I wanted us to talk about why they're important to us and why they matter to me. Some of these ladies, especially on my list, I remember when I grew up. I was in elementary school and middle school seeing these ladies when I, talking about gaming. And back then there weren't a lot that I saw, but I remember these ladies and I'm so happy to see that they are still doing great things in the industry and they're motivating other ladies to do the same thing. The world is rapidly changing and stuff, but I think that especially for Women's History Month, taking the time to acknowledge their work and their effort, but like you said, Seth, not only just that, but also talk about them when March ends. We shouldn't just halt the conversation on women in gaming and women's history. That should always be an active discussion moving forward. But,
that was the point I was trying to make, but sorry,
yes.
I did.
No,
I
it's okay.
Really get off the rails, didn't I?
It's okay. It's okay. I loved it. I was like, do it. No, but everybody who's listening here, who are some of your guys' favorite women in video gaming? Who are some of your industry people? Who are some of your favorite characters that you guys have, played with? You're like Aloy or Laura Croft or any of those people like those. Let us know over on Twitter at Darth Turner for Seth, at Rocket Punch Go for myself, guys. That is it for episode 37, guys. As always, we appreciate everything you guys are doing. Let us know how we're doing. Leave a review on your podcast service. Tell us how we're doing and what we can do to make this podcast and the content more better. Even though that's a Southern thing to say, more better for you. I can say that. This is a Southern podcast.
There you go.
Guys, remember, if you want to know more about the content I'm making for you, you can follow me at Twitter on Twitter at Rocket Punch Go. You can also catch my website over at rocketpunchgo.com. Check out all the stuff there. I'm really hoping there's a couple things I want to try and do, but I want to try and I'm working to try and get some more of that YouTube content out there for you guys. Appreciate everybody who's subscribed to YouTube, but I want to do a little bit more for you guys here, so stay tuned for that. Also, again, Patreon. You want to see all the content and all behind the scenes stuff and everything like that? $1. It's $1 a month, and I'll be talking about it this week on Twitter. But $1 a month is going to get you access to a lot of content there. So if you like what you're listening to, you're going to laugh your ass off with that stuff there. But guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Make sure you stay safe, wash your hands, wear your masks, all that great stuff.
Get vaccinated if you're eligible.
Yes, do that too. So that way we can get back together and I can start going to some conventions. I would love to go back to some conventions. That would be great. But thank you guys so much. Good night and good game. We'll catch you next week.